Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to this meaningful event. I would like to introduce you all to Sami Steigmann, Holocaust survivor and motivational speaker. Sami, thank you so much for making the trip out here to speak to the Needham community about your life and experiences. We are so grateful for the opportunity to hear from you and learn what you have to teach us. To begin, could you tell us about yourself? Where were you born? Where do you live now? What was your experience during the Holocaust? And how much do you remember?
I'll send. I think I prefer that. Oops.
We can bring another chair.
Okay. So, in addition of being a Holocaust survivor, I'm also a child of Holocaust survivors, motivational speaker, educator. I'm not a teacher. And if you know later, I will tell you the difference between a teacher and an educator. And at the same time, I served in the Israeli Air Force, 1962, 1965. Let me ask you a question. You are here to hear my story, to hear about the Holocaust. Why do we have to talk about the Holocaust? In my opinion, we have to talk about it forever and ever. Why? What do you care about it?
So it never happens again.
So not happen again. Okay, how about you?
So it never happens again.
Okay, well, okay.
It's an important part of history to know about.
Okay. The main reason, in my opinion, is because it's the best example what hate can do to a person, to a group of people, to a nation, and to the world. So that's why I am not going to talk about the pain that people suffered. Uh, every person goes through a trauma in their lifetime. It's very painful for them, but I will talk primarily how was it possible that ordinary people from Germany, from Europe, from other countries found that not only acceptable, but required to annihilate only one group of people, the Jewish people. Okay. Now, first of all, I wanted to give to Shiran a very big hand. Okay, she is the star of the show. Like the TV host, okay, I will follow her lead. Sometimes I will go further than what she's asking, but at the same time, okay, she's an upstander and, okay, was willing to do it. Please give her a big hand. So let me ask you first. In your opinion, what is a Holocaust survivor? Not everybody that went through during that period of time is a Holocaust survivor.
It's true. I have some family members that left before the Holocaust. They didn't actually experience the Holocaust.
No, but I asked you a question. What, in your opinion, what is a Holocaust survivor?
Someone that was able to survive the atrocities of the Holocaust and make it out alive to share their story.
Okay, good answer, but let me be a little bit more specific. In my opinion, a Holocaust survivor is somebody that was in one of the three type of camps. Number one, concentration camp. When they brought the people, okay, to the camp, the commander, many times a doctor whose job is to save lives, okay, would be in the middle, never say a single word. Right, left, right, left. One group of people would be murdered right away. The second group of people, okay, would become slaves. The second type of camp is the labor camp. So a lot of the people have heard of concentration camp, that was before, but I'm talking now about labor camp where I was with my parents. They did not kill you right away. You died through attrition, which means if the guard or the officer gave you instructions you did not follow properly in front of everybody, they would beat that person to death. They were worked to death. They were starved to death. Okay, they died of disease. Okay, and many times, okay, they would use them, the guards and the officers, the Nazis, would use them as shooting targets. The third one was the death camps. And I'm going to tell you something that I was completely shocked in 2013. In Daily Mail in London, in the New York Times, okay, there were two articles. The Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different type of camps. We will never know the full extent what happened during those days. The books are open right now everywhere, but we do not have enough people to do the research. In the meantime, they have discovered additional mass graves. Today, the number has risen to over 44,000 different type of camps. In all of these camps, only 6 were death camps. Please repeat after me, and you're young people so I can hear you. Okay, Auschwitz, Birkenau. Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, Chelmno, and Majdanek. Okay, just in Auschwitz, Birkenau, they murdered 1.3 million people. 1.1 were Jews, 200,000 were not Jewish people. And I'm very happy that we have people, okay, Muslim and you, I'm very honored, I'm very happy, because, okay, the Holocaust and the hate is not referred only to one group of people, it's, okay, right now what's happening, there's a lot of hate in the world. In 1991, 46 years later after the war ended, finally, another group of people were recognized as Holocaust survivors. And they are called the hidden children. These were people that were saved by strangers, hidden by them, at the risk of their families' lives. They lived in the forest, they lived in the sewer, and did whatever they could to escape the dire consequences. What's your question first?
Can you just tell us about yourself and what your sort of story is?
When my parents and I were deported, I was only a year and a half. Do you think I remember anything? Exactly. Do you think that the Holocaust survivors told their stories to the children? They wanted the children to have a normal childhood. They did not want to burden them. And I will tell you later when and why I started to speak. Okay. Let's talk first of all about my parents. They are survivors, or were because they passed away. My father was an orphan of both of his parents. My grandfather died before he was born, and in those days, with very few exceptions, only the men provided for the family. Unable to take care of 8 children, my grandmother decided to take the 2 youngest one and commit suicide. A stranger saved the children, but my grandmother did commit suicide. So my father grew up in an orphanage in Austria, in Vienna. And at age 13, he was let go, couldn't stay any longer. So he had to learn how to fend for himself, and that helped him during the war. It helped him after the war, when there was not enough food to feed the population, and he knew how to provide for the family. To give an example, okay, even to buy a loaf of bread, you had to bribe somebody. But I lived in a communist country. And if the person, okay, would go to the police, my father would not see the light of the day. So he knew, because he had to learn how to fend for himself at a very young age. He knew who to trust, okay, and he was able to provide for the family. Another thing that maybe you do not know, for instance, either it was so expensive or it was not available, okay, you could not buy cheese, you could not buy a lot of the things. So people used to improvise. And I remember my mother used to buy a lot of bottles of milk, used to let them to ferment, whatever it is, and they turned into cheese in other things. So people had to be very uh, improvising, okay. Now, uh, being only a year and a half, how do you think, okay, if you will ask any survivor, how come you're alive today? They will use only one word. What is it? Pardon me? Starts with letter L. Luck. There is no rhyme, there is no reason why somebody lived, somebody died. My luck was that I was never separated from my parents. My luck was that I was subjected to medical experiments. You will not see it on my face, but I suffered all my life, every single second, and I will suffer for the rest of my life. And at the same time, a German woman saved my life. So that's why it's very important, with the German woman, not to stereotype. Okay, not everybody, okay, was a criminal. What happened is, not far away from the camp, there was a farm owned by Germans, and the German woman brought food to the guards in the SS. So she had access to go wherever she wanted in the camp. After they finished with the medical experiments, came a stage that I was dying of starvation. And there are physical signs: big head, swollen stomach, swollen feet. When she saw the physical signs that I'm dying of starvation, she decided to give me milk. Possibly more, but my father only told me about milk, so I'm not going to ad lib. So interestingly enough, okay, when I got some color, she used to pinch me, and she used to say, "Those are my rosy cheeks." If she would have been caught, her entire family would have been killed. I do not know the name of the person that saved my life. But in 2014, I was in Israel, and I gave testimony at Yad Vashem. This is the Holocaust Museum. And next to the museum, there is a garden honoring 27,000 non-Jewish people that saved Jews. And I saw a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nations. And that made me very happy, because indirectly, the woman that saved my life has been honored.
And after you got out of the labor camp, what happened to you? Where'd you go?
Well, let me start with something else, with your permission. I am going to say how the Holocaust and genocide happened. Because they happened, nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing is sudden. It takes years to come to it. The Holocaust, for practical purposes, okay, the beginning of it is the end of World War I. When Germany lost the war, there was a treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, that was so severe that the German people lost their national pride. Number one, they had to return all the occupied land. They could not have an army. I have seen pictures in a military parade. Instead of having guns, they had shovels. And number three, they had to pay reparations to all the countries they fought against. Let me ask you a question. Do you know what inflation is? You sure? I'll guarantee you, you don't. This country is in debt of $33 trillion. Nobody knows what $1 trillion is. I have heard, I did not check it out, I cannot tell you for certain, but they said that if you take the Empire State Building and you fill it up from the bottom to the top with $1, you don't have $1 trillion. What happened is, when they had to pay reparation, that caused inflation. In 1917, $1 was worth 4 German money. At the height of the inflation in 1923, $1 was worth 1 trillion. You could have a wheelbarrow full of paper money, and you could not buy even a newspaper. Nobody wanted it. They used it, okay, to warm themselves up in the winter for the fire. At the same time, those were the conditions, and that's why I do not want you to make comparisons to the past, but to learn from it to prevent future tragedies. But those were the conditions that allowed somebody like Hitler. And I'm going to ask you, yes, don't feel nervous. If you don't know, I'll guarantee you that the rest of them also don't know. Okay, but I just want to know how much you know, how much you don't know. When Hitler started the Nazi Party, how many members did he have?
Not a lot.
Yes, that is true.
Maybe like
Give me a
5.
number. Very
Is that
close.
right? Oh.
Very close. He had only 6. So there are many groups that start very, very small, hate groups and everything else. Oh, and you dismiss them. They're too small. By dismissing them, okay, they started to grow and gain power. So Hitler and the Nazi Party, they started with propaganda. Every single day in the newspaper, they portrayed the Jews, big nose, okay, dirty, unclean, somebody that you should not associate with. And this went every single day for years. And when it's done so often, people become desensitized and they become accepted. What percentage of Germans voted for the Nazi Party in 1932? Percentage. Give me a number. 30%. So here it is from 6 members. In the elections of 1932, he had 30% of the German vote. The other thing that I want to say is, and I'm going to ask you, don't worry, everybody will participate so as much as I can. Okay? The Nazis portrayed the Jews by the name of an animal.
Mhm.
Which animal?
Vermin?
Say it again?
Vermin?
No. Very good answer, no. Starts with the letter R.
Rabbit? Rat?
Say it again?
Rat?
Rats. Correct. Very good. Okay, why did they portray the Jews as rats? Because just like the Jews, they are very small in number. They live all over the world. But guess what? Okay, they spread disease. And by portraying the Jews as threats, they convince the rest of the world, okay, to join them in annihilating the Jewish people. Okay. Now, what happened is, one final question. Who shall I go to? Let you. What was the initial goal of the Nazis? Initial goal regarding the Jews. What do you think?
To get them out of Germany?
Say it again?
To get them out of Germany?
Very good. A little bit more confidence. Excellent. Okay? Their initial goal was not to murder the Jews. It was to have a Germany free of Jewish people, Judenfrei. But the Jews proudly fought for Germany in World War I. They lived there for centuries. They were assimilated. Why would they want to leave? So to make them leave, they came out in 1935 with the Nuremberg laws. In the Nuremberg laws, okay, they made life so difficult that a lot of them finally left Germany. But where did they go? They went to Europe. And interestingly now, they were not yet violent. They boycotted the store, they separated them. And the Germans, even today, I was in Germany 3 times, even today they're law-abiding citizens. To understand what I mean by law-abiding, here in the United States, if you say the speed limit is 65, that's the benchmark. In Germany, it is the speed limit. So in the Nuremberg law, they told them, do not associate yourself with your Jewish neighbors, with your Jewish friends. And because it was the law, the Germans felt patriotic to do that. So, like I said before, they were not yet violent, but in 1938, and you see, people knew about it, but did not react in time. In every dictator, everybody, what they do is they test the ground. And if there is no an upswell of, of opposing them, okay, things will escalate. So there were very small groups that opposed the Nazis and everything else, but it was not, in a large scale. So in 1938, they annexed Austria, and that became part of the Greater Germany. In November 9 and November 10 of 1938, there were 2 days of riots sponsored by the state. What are they known today? November 9, November 10.
Sure.
It's known as Crystal Nacht, the night of the broken glass. Okay, and to add insult to injury, they forced the Jews to pay for the cleanup, for the damage. So they murdered over 100 Jews. They destroyed over 7,500 stores and synagogues. And at the same time, they put in prison 30,000. So that was the first time that the Germans became violent against the Jewish people. Okay, again, okay, people did not react in time appropriately. It escalated. Comes September 1st, 1939, when they attacked Poland. World War II started. But unlike Europe, which was occupied, Poland was annexed, became part of the Greater Germany. So in Germany, they did not want any Jews. And in Poland, they found 3.3 million Jews. What the hell do you do with them? And that came the idea of exterminating them. The next stage in escalating comes June 22nd, 1941. They had an agreement with the former Soviet Union not to attack each other, but the Wehrmacht, Hitler, decided, okay, to renege on that agreement, and he attacked former Soviet Union. Behind the Wehrmacht, the German military, were special killing groups called Einsatzgruppen, and behind them were the Romanian troops. And the Romanians annexed an area called Transnistria. Okay, and my parents and I, okay, because my father was born in Romania proper, Okay, we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. And I was in a labor camp in Transnistria, Mogilev Podolsk, okay, deported by the Romanians. Okay. As you can see, step by step by step, it took many years from the early 20s. Okay, finally comes the final solution. When I'm using the final solution, it means to reach that point, there were many, many solutions, okay, and the people eventually came to the final one. And that is January 20, 1942. My opinion, the official date of the Holocaust. It is in a city which today is part of Berlin, called Wannsee. Okay, 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals decided to get together. And okay, they called the operation the final solution to the Jewish question. Okay. Interestingly enough, they started with Europe. They made a list of all of the European countries, came out with a list of 11 million Jews, and once they were going to murder every single European Jew, they were going to open up a museum in Prague. And they were going to call it the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. So I want you to understand, to see the signs of today, not to make any comparisons, but to see how if you, especially you, the young people, this is your world, your future, you will make the necessary changes. You have to become upstanders, to stand up, to hate, to everything else. It make this a more, okay, peaceful, more tolerant, more compassionate world. And before I'm coming back to you, there is one virus that can never be eradicated. Okay, very good. A little bit more specific. Okay, it's called, the virus is the virus of bullying, bigotry, Jew hatred, hate, racism, and ideology. It can never be eradicated. It was always there. It will always be there depending on technology, depending on circumstances under which society we live. The only way we can combat it is only through education. And if you want to change somebody's opinion, okay, be sure that you're very knowledgeable on that particular subject. And I don't care what that subject is, but let's assume that you believe in climate change. You're not going to change anybody's perspective unless you're knowledgeable on that particular subject. Don't make things up. So whatever you're passionate about, be very knowledgeable on that subject.
You want me to ask another question?
Sure. That's why I'm coming to you. You're the moderator. So I talk a lot, but because it's important, there's a lot of information.
Why did your parents choose to move from Transylvania to Israel after the Holocaust?
Okay. I was always a Zionist, and obviously because of my parents. I was too young. And my parents in 1949 applied to go to Israel. We got the visa only in 1961. But let me tell you a funny story. In 1947, before the establishment of the State of Israel, a few pioneers came to our very, very small town. The town where I lived, okay, became a city only 28 years ago. So they came to the very small town, and one of them comes to me and he says, Do you want to go to Palestine? No. Are you a Zionist? No. He said, okay, I'll circumcise you. I became a Zionist. Okay, I decided to go to Israel. So a little fear does not hurt. So, but I was always a Zionist. And for people that are not familiar with the term, what it means, different people give it different interpretations. For me, is that the Jewish people have the right to have their own state and to determine good, bad, or indifferent their own future. Okay. And that is in very simple term what Zionism means to me. Okay.
What was the adjustment like when you moved to Israel, coming from a place where you didn't speak
Okay.
Hebrew?
You probably heard, especially the Jewish students, you probably heard that a lot of people say that when they came to Israel, they kissed the ground. My first memory coming to Israel, believe it or not, is a very simple one. For the first time, I saw a Jewish policeman. Why was it so defining moment for me? It's because the Jews were always lived under different regimes, and we were dependent on the benevolence of those regimes. Okay, seeing a Jewish policeman, it was the first time that I realized that we, okay, are in charge of our own destiny. Okay, and being Zionist, I always wanted to go to Israel. Yes, but it took 12 years. And by the way, okay, they had to bribe the Romanian government to do that.
And what was your experience in the Israeli Air Force?
In the Israeli Air Force, I studied the first French plane that had the delta wing, Mirage 3C, and I was in the first class that studied that particular plane. I was not a pilot, okay, and during the war, okay, once you are in Air Force base, uh, that's the first thing that gets attacked. If you survive the first half hour, 45 minutes, after that you are a worker in the uniform. Okay, so I did not shoot at anybody. Nobody shot at me. But I was very proud. And by the way, do you speak Hebrew? Who speaks Hebrew? Let me go to you. Okay? Okay. What do you think they called me? I was 22 years old. What do you think that the other soldiers called me? You don't know? You translate to everybody. Saba. At age 22, I became a grandfather because all the rest of them were 17, 18-year-old kids. So they called me grandpa. Yeah.
And just to backtrack for a second, how exactly did you get out of the labor camp that you were in?
Okay. Like I said, we were deported in 1941. So that was part of today's Ukraine, former Soviet Union. So the camp was liberated by the Red Army, by the Soviets in 1944. We were somewhere, okay, for 2 years. I don't remember. My father mentioned some names. I don't remember them. Okay, in the former Soviet Union. But in 1946, the Romanian government allowed a small group of Jews, okay, to repatriate. So my father, being an anti-communist, decided to go back to Romania because he was born there, and for whatever reason settled in a very small town in Transylvania. Let me ask you, are you afraid of me?
No.
You should be. I'm the Jewish Dracula. Yeah. So I grew up there. I went to school, obviously, and everything else. In 1961, finally, we were able to go to Israel.
My dad was born in Transylvania.
Say it again?
My dad was also from Transylvania.
But he probably was a nice person, not like me. And don't destroy my reputation. I'm not a nice person.
And once after you finished the Israeli Air Force, why did you choose to move to the U.S. without the rest of your family?
Ah, that's very good. A raise of hands. Who heard of something called Jewish mother? Oh, you did? There are many jokes about it. So when after I finished from my father's side, from 32 people, 42 people, only 2 survived. My uncle was not a survivor. He was never in a camp. He was in one of only 3 countries, only 3, that officially accepted Jewish refugees. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. There are many countries today that accept refugees. Okay, do not make comparisons to the past. There were only 3 countries that officially. That was Dominican Republic, China, and Philippines. My uncle was a refugee in Shanghai, and I wanted to meet him. But my aunt developed breast cancer in the early 60s. That was a death sentence. I finished the military. I started my career, had my friends, and I forgot about traveling. And my mother came to me, she said, "You're almost, okay, at 28 years old. You're still single. Why don't you travel?" And I said, "Mother, I lost my interest right now." So she, got my father's help. And both of them, at every opportunity, used to bug me. "Why don't you travel?" And I am the type of person that I like compromises. But the compromise must be win-win, not win-lose. That's not a compromise. So I knew that at that time, before I tell you that one, how is it possible that I was born officially in 3 different countries? And don't tell me what the 4th grader said. The 4th grader said that my mother moved. Okay, give me a good reason. How is it possible that I was officially born?
You got your citizenship somewhere else?
Yes, because as the border changed, so that my nationality. So initially, in my passport, when I came to Israel, it said that I was born in Romania. When I came to the United States, okay, it said that I was born in the former Soviet Union. Today, in my passport, it says that I was born in Ukraine. Okay, so anyway, so I came out with a compromise, and I said, you know something? At that time, in my passport, it said I was born in the former Soviet Union. And I knew that the quota was based on the country of origin, being the most communist country in the world. At that time, I knew it will take at least 5 years to get the visa. And I said, that's wonderful. Who knows what happens in 5 years? And they'll get off my back. Okay, why suddenly they changed the immigration laws within a very short time, probably less than 2 months? I was totally unprepared. Okay, they changed it by profession. Why they needed accountants, I have no idea. But America, here I come, without the language and without money. Okay, so it was an interesting introduction to the American culture. You want to know? Okay, so I had a second cousin. He lived in very close to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and was quite wealthy, and promised my father that he will help me to just adapt to the new country. And I'm coming on a Sunday, invited me for lunch. Okay, and all of a sudden I want to say something, and he said, "Shh." What happened? Football time. And I see these big guys hitting each other, not knowing what happened, why they hit themselves, okay, for 6 hours without saying a single word. And that was my introduction to the American culture. And let me ask you a question. Since I did not know English, How did I learn English?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It sounds
TV?
so people can hear you.
The TV, like watching TV.
Yeah, something specific.
Like,
Very good.
like a show. Like what show did you watch?
Not a show.
Oh, like sports? Watching sports?
No.
Oh, I don't know.
Commercials. Okay. And even today I like commercials, okay, because it's repetitive. Okay, you can associate with pictures and everything else, the proper pronunciation. And I was not afraid to speak, knowing that I will make mistakes. But people are not mean. They will make fun of you, but after that they will correct you and they will tell you exactly the same thing. Like, okay, a group of people invited me to go to lunch, and they asked me what my name is. And I said, Sami Steigmann. And the other guy comes and he says, my name is Charlie Brown. Okay, and I said, hi, Charlie. And they were laughing, but they explained me that Charlie Brown was just a caricature, a character. Okay. By the way, when Shiran will open up for the Q&A, I want you to know one thing. You can ask me questions on any subject that you want. Okay? There is nothing off the table. I will be very open with you. I will tell you how I feel. Okay? I will not ask any one of you to agree with me. All I will ask is that you respect that I may have a different opinion than yours. So everything revolves with one word, respect. Yes. You are the hosts.
Could you tell us one thing, excuse me, one thing you wish more people understood about what happened in the Holocaust?
The one thing that I want to say is that a lot of people blamed God for what happened. God had nothing to do with it. The Holocaust happened because of people. But a lot of them became agnostic because they said, how could God allow something like that happen? On the other hand, because of the miracle that a lot of people were able to survive, luck, but they were able to survive. And at the same time, with the miracle of the establishment of the State of Israel, a lot of them became very religious. The only thing that I can say, people that believe in a superior being, God, or call it whatever you want, depending on your beliefs, okay, they were able, a number of them, to survive because they said there is a reason why I am here. People that had no beliefs whatsoever, a lot of them committed suicide because the conditions were so severe. Now, when I mentioned to you labor camp, you think, labor camp is not so bad. Okay? I'm going to use you as an example, and I'm going to assume, without asking you, that you weigh about 180 pounds.
I wish. Yes, close. Yes.
You're more than that.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. Okay, well, you look good.
Thank you.
But interesting life, imagine yourself, somebody like him, okay, going through in a labor camp and survive. Okay, once he survived, he did weigh 65 pounds. A walking skeleton. It's unbelievable. I cannot imagine, as a Holocaust survivor, how people were able to go through this. So things were extremely difficult. And there are many signs of today that unless you are going to take action, and one of the things that I wish all of you would do is to start taking example from Martin Luther King Jr. In the civil rights movement, what he did, he brought in other groups with him. The Jews, as a matter of fact, were the first group of people that marched with him. Okay, and they did it without violence. okay, brought the media. So I would like you to do, okay, nationwide to organize, uh, groups, okay, rallies. But I want you to do it without violence. And I want to tell you something. Without the media, you will not accomplish anything. The media must be with you. And as a Jew, I do not fight only Jew hatred, I fight hate. And how many of you have heard of a group of people called Uyghur? In the former Soviet Union, when the Jews wanted to escape the dire consequences, they went to the south, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan, they live Muslims. Their language is very close to the Turkish one, and they receive the Jews with open arms. About 4 years ago, I believe, I was asked to speak on the behalf of the Uyghur people what's happening in China. And I did not know anything, so I had to do the research. I spoke twice in front of the UN. I live in Manhattan. And at the same time, okay, once at their rally, national rally. And I said, unless you convince the United States to call what's happening in China genocide, nothing will happen. But once the United States will accept it as genocide, other countries will join. The United States is the leader. I don't know how they did it. They followed my advice. And now, right now, worldwide, what's happening in China is known as genocide against the Uyghur people. So, one other thing. May I ask you a question? Have you ever seen a copy as good as the original?
Yes.
You have?
No.
Thank you. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Convinced?
Yes.
Okay. So remember one thing. You are an original. Do not follow somebody else. You have your own path. Okay? And be the best person that you can be. Okay. Now, before you open it up to Q&A, can I tell them when and how I started to speak?
Yes, please.
Yes? Thank you. For 63 years, I felt I don't belong to the Holocaust survivors. I have no memory of that period of time. For me, it's a blessing in disguise because I don't have to relive, like the older generation, those horror stories. And my parents did not talk about it. I've also felt I don't belong to the children of the Holocaust survivors because most of them were born in DP camps, displaced people. These were the camps liberated by the Allies. They had to be for 3 to 5 years because no country wanted them under difficult conditions. But the threat, the daily threat of being killed did not exist. So I ignored being a Holocaust survivor. The Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. closed its doors to the general public for 2 days. For 16 years in a row, it opened it up only to the Holocaust survivors, their children, and their liberators. I never went. November 1st and November 2nd, 2003, don't ask me why, I decided to go. There were over 8,000 people from all over the world. And at the table where I was sitting, I met a man born in the same city, been in the same camp, the same years, 1941, 1944. He was deported when he was 8 months old. I was deported when I was a year and a half. And that is the difference between history and living history. What you are witnessing is living history. By meeting somebody like me, I finally felt for the first time that I belong to both generations. I decided to stop ignoring being a Holocaust survivor. In 2007, I joined the Holocaust Museum in Manhattan. In 2008, I got my first assignment to speak to sixth graders. Raise of hands, how many of you have spoken publicly? Oh, you did. Very good. Was your first presentation the best? Was it the most complete?
No.
Guess what? I find myself in the same situation. And in speaking to sixth graders, I had no idea what impact I will have. I did not believe that I have a compelling story. But I said, remember Nike? Just do it. So I did it. And guess what? Meant to be. They sent me thank you letters, each one better than the other. But one sixth grader changed my life forever. And she wrote, and sometimes a word, a sentence, something, okay, will make a difference in your life. And she wrote, P.S., your story was overwhelming, and I promise I'll pass your story to my children. When I saw the impact that I had on such young people in my first presentation, I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to reach as many young people as I can, nationally, internationally, okay, and to teach you, okay, and hopefully for you to become upstanders, okay, to stand up to hate, to injustice, and at the same time to make a difference in this world. And each one of you, individually, has the power to make a difference. And I like to use one particular quote. To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you are the world. So each one of you can make a difference and should.